Please welcome Wendy Nichols and the Platform Party.
Morning conference, and welcome to the final session of conference of 2024. First we'll take the CAC report in just a moment. But firstly, I'll ask Izzy Lenger, the Chief Scrutineer, to come and announce the result of the final ballot at conference. Thank you, Izzy.
Good morning, Conference. Chair, Conference, Izzy Lenger, Chief Scrutineer. I will now report the results of the Auditor's ballot held at Conference yesterday. There are 2 members to be elected. At least one must be a woman. Therefore, Brinkworth Ghulam was elected unopposed. The results for the election of the second Auditor is as follows. Greenacre Daniel, 21,991. Kitchen Chris, 1,828,469. I therefore declare the following candidates elected. Kitchen Chris, Brinkworth Ghulam. That concludes the ballots at conference this year. It's been such a pleasure to be your Chief Scrutineer this year. I'll see you at conference next year. Thank you, Conference.
Thank you, Izzy. And as Izzy said, there's no more ballots today or until next year. And so can we have a special round of applause, please, for Izzy and the scrutineers, the tellers, the ballot staff who've kept the show on the road. Conference, we now have the final CAC report of conference, and can I ask Lynn Morris, please, to present the report. Thanks, Lynn.
Conference, I formally present CAC Report 4. Today we have timetabled debates, composite motions on health mission, making work pay for public services, opportunity mission, AI and automation, an economy fit for the future, and a woman's place in the workplace, as well as we will invite Matt Rack from the FBU and President of the TUC to address us. The motions can be found on page 6 to 13 of your CAC report. Results from the ballot yesterday to elect our national auditors are printed on pages 13 and 14. Today, conference, we have plenary sessions on an NHS fit for the future and breaking down barriers to opportunity. And then we will close with a speech from the party chair, Ellie Reeves. The Conference Arrangements Committee would like to thank the Labour Party team, the conference venue staff and the many, many contractors who have worked incredibly hard to make this a great conference. I hope delegates have had... delegates have had a good conference, and I wish you all a very safe journey home. That after the close of business, of course. Conference, I move CAC 4.
Thank you, Lynn. And now, can I ask if anyone's got any questions to ask? Can I just remind everyone it needs to be a question and not a speech? And we have a lot of business to attend to today. So is there anyone who wants to ask a question? No? Wow. Okay. Thank you. And just before you go, Lynn, I just want to thank you on behalf of the whole conference, you and your team and the CAC, for the work that you've done on our behalf to make conference run. It's a very difficult task, and I want to thank you all and the staff for what you've done. Thank you. So, conference, we now move to our first mission plenary, an NHS Fit for the Future, which is our first debate. So, to kickstart the debate, it gives me the great pleasure to introduce our Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, Wes Streeting.
Thank you. Thank you, conference. Thank you. Thank you. Dave has worked in the ambulance service for nearly 30 years, but nothing could have prepared him for what he faced on Monday, the 29th of July. He arrived on the scene in Southport to find children who had gone to dance to Taylor Swift and the adults whose sole purpose was to bring joy to their young lives, lying, bleeding, some tragically dying. The result of an unimaginable, senseless, mindless attack. I listened to Dave describe the split-second decisions he had to make of who to treat, in what order, to give them the best chance of survival. And I heard how the whole NHS team came together. Security rushing children through busy hospital corridors, technicians mobilising blood supplies, reception fielding calls from panic-stricken parents, and surgical teams fighting desperately hard to save those young lives. Those heroes represent the very best of the NHS, and we owe them a debt of gratitude we can never repay. And conference, I can't tell you the weight of responsibility I feel to make sure that the National Health Service that has been there for us since 1948 is there for the next century and beyond. And I tell you, I will not let you down. But the truth is, conference, right now, the NHS is letting people down. Let me tell you about Claire, who messaged me on Instagram. She is a stage 4 cancer patient. When she felt pain 2 years ago, she struggled to get diagnosed. Her employer provides private health insurance, and for the first time in her life, Claire used it. Had she stayed with the NHS, Claire is certain she'd be dead. Instead, she's been able to live her life to the full, including getting married in Ibiza. Every cancer patient deserves world-class care. But for every person like Claire who was able to go private, there are thousands more who can't. That cruel lottery is the legacy of 14 years of Conservative neglect. That is the two-tier system of healthcare that Labour will end. And that is why we must reform our NHS. It starts with honesty. So I asked Lord Darzi, a cancer surgeon with 30 years' experience, to lead an independent investigation into our National Health Service. The results are grim. 100,000 toddlers and babies left waiting for 6 hours in A&E last year. Cancer, more likely to be a death sentence here than in other countries. Nearly 3 million people off work sick, waiting lists at record highs, patient satisfaction at a record low, and the fundamental promise of the NHS that it will be there for us when we need it has been broken. Broken by a decade of underinvestment, by a disastrous top-down reorganisation by the Tories, and by ditching the reforms made by the last Labour government. All of this meant that when the pandemic hit, our NHS was on its knees and hit harder than any other comparable healthcare system. It's not just that the Tories didn't fix the roof while the sun was shining. They doused the house in petrol, left the gas on, and COVID just lit the match. That's why millions are stuck on waiting lists. That's why ambulances don't arrive on time. That's why you can't see your GP. Never forgive, never forget, never let the Tories do it again. Look, I know the doctor's diagnosis can sometimes be hard to hear. But if you don't have an accurate diagnosis, you won't provide the correct prescription. And when you put protecting the reputation of the NHS above protecting patients, you're not helping the NHS, you're killing it with kindness. So I say respectfully, but unequivocally, I won't back down. The NHS is broken, but it's not beaten, and together we will turn it around. And make no mistake, the Tories had a plan for the NHS. Mismanaged decline. A status quo so poor, people are forced to raid their savings to go private. A crisis so bad that 7 in 10 people now expect charges for NHS care to be introduced. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Over my dead body, we will always defend our NHS as a public service, free at the point of use, so that whenever you fall ill, you never have to worry about the bill. The conference, we can only deliver recovery through reform. Without action on prevention, the NHS will be overwhelmed. Without reform to services, we'll end up putting in more cash for poorer results. That's the choice, reform or die, and we choose reform. Since the general election, we've hit the ground running. We inherited the farce of newly qualified GPs facing unemployment. Patients can't get a GP appointment while GPs couldn't get a job. We cut red tape, found the funding, and we'll have 1,000 more GPs treating patients. That's the difference a Labour government makes. We're banning junk food ads targeted at children. The first step towards making our country's children the healthiest generation that has ever lived. That's the difference a Labour government makes. Strikes have crippled the NHS, cost taxpayers billions, and saw 1.5 million appointments cancelled. Do you know, my predecessor, her ministers, the previous Conservative Health Secretary, hadn't even bothered to meet the junior doctors since March. I called them on day one, met them in week one, and in just 3 weeks, we negotiated a deal to end the strikes. That's the difference a Labour government makes. Ending the junior doctors' strikes and building a new relationship with resident doctors was central to our commitment to deliver 40,000 more appointments a week. But as well as getting staff back to work, we need to get them working at the top of their game. We're sending crack teams of top clinicians to hospitals across the country to roll out reforms developed by surgeons to treat more patients and cut waiting lists. And I can announce today that the first 20 hospitals targeted by these teams will be in areas with the highest numbers of people off work sick, because our reforms are not only focused on delivering our health mission, but also moving the dial on our growth mission too. We will take the best of the NHS to the rest of the NHS, get sick Brits back to health and back to work. That's the difference a Labour government makes. But conference, we can't fix the crisis in our NHS without fixing the crisis in social care. And we can't fix social care without the people who work in it. I loved what Keir said yesterday about his sister, a care worker, about his determination to make sure that when she walks into a room and tells people what she does for a living, that she receives the same respect as the Prime Minister. So let me tell you, as the Secretary of State for Social Care, I won't let Keir down, his sister down, or fail more than 1 million care professionals just like her. Angela and I will deliver a new deal for care professionals, a fair pay agreement to improve pay and conditions and give staff the status and respect they deserve. Our first step towards building a national care service. Thank you. Thank you. Every day in this job, I see the scale of the challenge. But I also see something else, the potential of our NHS. The Tories' biggest betrayal wasn't that they left the NHS unable to care for us today, it's that they left it totally unprepared for tomorrow. Advances in genomics and data mean the healthcare of the future will be more predictive, more preventative, and more personalised than ever before, detecting from birth a child's risk of disease so we can act to keep them well, spotting cancer earlier, saving countless lives, treating patients with targeted medicines. To make these advances a reality for the many, not just the few, we need following things: a universal health service, free at the point of need, able to share data, partner with innovators, and adopt new technologies at scale. Such a service would be unique in the whole world. Conference, the good news is that service already exists. It's called the National Health Service. And our job is not just to get the NHS back on its feet, we must make it fit for the future. And that is what our 10-year plan for health will achieve. Conference, if we get this right, we will end two-tier healthcare in our country for good, so that the preventative care, precision medicine, personalised treatment are no longer just for the few, but are enjoyed by the many. That fairer future is possible, but only if we act today. An NHS running on fax machines can't seize these opportunities, but a reformed NHS can. From analogue to digital, from hospital to community, from sickness to prevention. Reform isn't just possible, it is happening. From AI detecting skin cancer and cutting waiting times, to weight loss jabs, slashing the risk of heart attacks for diabetes patients. But Conference, to seize that potential, we have to reform the NHS to make it fairer. When the wealthy receive a diagnosis, they already know the best surgeons and can push to get the best care. But working people can't. If the wealthy are told to wait months for treatment, they can shop around. But working people can't. And if they pay top dollar, the wealthy can be treated with cutting-edge equipment and technology. But working people can't. Our 10-year plan will give all patients, rich and poor alike, the same information, the same choice, the same control. Now, I know there are some on the left who cringe at this, who view choice as somehow akin to marketisation. But our party has always believed that power should be in the hands of the many, not the few. That public services exist to serve the interests of the pupil, the passenger, the patient above all else. That world-class services shouldn't just be the preserve of the wealthy. So starting in the most disadvantaged areas, we will ensure patients' right to choose where they are treated, and we will build up local health services so it's a genuine choice. And where there's capacity in the private sector, patients should be able to choose to go there too, free at the point of use, paid for by the NHS, because working people deserve to be treated on time just as much as the wealthy. And Conference, when we look around our country today, it's easy to be pessimistic. But the public have turned to us to give them hope. So here it is. We are in the foothills of a decade of national renewal, 10 years in which our country and our health and care services will change enormously. The NHS transformed into a neighbourhood health service, a digital health service powered by cutting-edge technology, a preventative health service that helps us stay healthy and out of hospital, and a new national care service ensuring people can live dignified and fulfilling lives. That's the change that lies before us. It will take time, and it won't be easy. We will have to fight loud opposition, cynicism, and vested interests, but conference, bring it on. It's up to us. It's up to us to prove that politics can be a force for good again. So let me say to every one of you in this hall and to the millions of dedicated staff in health and social care across our country, we are the generation that will take the NHS from the worst crisis in its history to build an NHS fit for the future. We are the generation that will build a national care service worthy of the name. The NHS there for us when we need it, with world-class care for the many, not just the few. That's the change Britain voted for. That's the change we'll deliver together. And conference, that change has already begun. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Wes. And now we move on to our motions. The first motion is Composite 11, Health Mission, moved by Ilford North CLP and seconded by Norwich South. Can I ask you both to go to the desk? Thank you.
Hello, Jennifer Hemingway, Smethwick CLP. That wasn't what we agreed at compositing as far as movers and seconders. I'm not quite sure how that is what got printed.
I think you probably should have raised that with the CAC this morning because we don't print the documents. All I've got in front of me is what everybody else has got. Okay. So I really do need Ilford North to move and Norwich South to second.
Don't know if they both know that.
Right. Thank you for that. Shall we move to the next one? I'm going to suggest we move to the next one and then we can resolve it hopefully. Oh, right. No? Okay. Sorry about that. The next... no, that's Barbara. That's GMB. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Can I ask GMB to come and move the second composite and Unison to come in second? Thank you. Thanks, Barbara.
Chair, Conference. Barbara Plant, GMB President. Moving Composite 2. Conference, our children's education depends on the work of school support staff, teaching assistants, lunchtime supervisors, site managers, learning support assistants, office staff, to name but a few. Our work is vital, particularly for children identified with special educational needs and disabilities. But we have been routinely forgotten, and our conditions are much poorer than our teaching counterparts. When I started, I was called a primary helper, reading with children, sharpening pencils, and helping to clear away resources at the end of the day. Today, we know it is a hidden profession with increasing skills levels and workload. For example, to work one-to-one with a child who has Down syndrome, I had to learn simple sign language. But while skill levels have increased, our pay hasn't. The last Labour government established the School Support Staff Negotiating Body, which I represented my union on at the time. It planned to improve training opportunities and ensure pay and conditions were driven upwards. But under the Conservative-led coalition, Michael Gove scrapped it and went on to call teaching assistants like me a mum's army. How patronising, how condescending, but how typically Tory. It makes our members feel like second-class citizens at work, forced into second, third, and even fourth jobs to make ends meet. Our support staff are already low paid, and term-time-only contracts add to this, meaning staff lost up to almost £4,000 last year. Labour is committed to reinstating the triple SMB, but to truly, that deserves a clap. But to truly make work pay in schools, it must cover staff in academies, and it must also bring outsourced school workers, such as kitchen staff and others, back in-house. Conference, 14 long years in opposition. Our members have felt it. But Labour's back in government and has a real opportunity to truly recognise the vital work that support staff do for our children, a real opportunity to set first-class pay, conditions and progression standards in our schools across the country. Let's not waste it. Conference, I move. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Morning, Conference. Good morning, Conference. Sharon Foster, Unison, seconding Composite 2 on behalf of Unison, the largest union representing school supporting staff. I'm really pleased that GMB have brought this issue to Conference. In my branch, with a large membership in schools, it is something that is close to my heart, and close to the heart of many thousands of Unison members. Conference, we have to remind ourselves that the school supporting staff negotiating body is not something new. In fact, under Gordon Brown's, it was introduced by the last Labour government. The campaign it was led by our new General Secretary, Christina McAnee, who at the time was our chief negotiator for school staff. Sadly, it was one of the first things the coalition government acts, they hated it. And that's the difference between being power and out of power. The Tories, in fact, abolished it twice in two separate bits of legislation. And why did they hate it? Well, we should never forget that Tories and Liberal Democrats are hostile to things like the National Joint Council, which negotiates and ensures national terms and conditions, training, career progression, and fair pay rates for school supporting staff. But we in Labour are different. That's why it was important that Labour said in the manifesto that it would value, recognise the professionalism of the entire school workforce and address the recruitment and retention challenges. The GMB motion is right to highlight the insufficient training, development and pay for frontline staff supporting pupils identified with special educational needs and disabilities. Unison also demands that school support staff are recognized for their professionalism and rewarded too with decent pay. The new triple SMB must cover all support staff, must include academic schools. We don't need two tiers in our schools. And outsourcing must end. Bringing services back in-house, it's a must. If our schools are giving our children the best start in life, then staff we can provide. Unison knows that Bridget Phillipson takes these issues seriously. We look forward to working with her and GMB. Please support.
Okay, we'll move back to the first one. And after the point of order, we are going to ask Ilford North CLP to move and Norwich South to second. There has been a little bit of a misunderstanding, but if you would like to come up and move the motion, thank you.
Gabe Milne, Ilford North CLP, and on a personal note before I start, I came to my first conference as a Jewish member in 2019 and I could not have pictured being on this stage. So thank you to everyone in this room who helped me feel able to do this. I'm really proud of where I live, and that's in the London Borough of Redbridge. And a few years ago, we almost lost our local A&E department, but thanks to work from our MPs, Wes Streeting and Jazz Athwell, it was saved and was there for me when I needed it the most. Sadly, that hospital is overstretched and it's understaffed, and despite the fact that those doctors, nurses, support staff, they're brilliant, but they're fighting against impossible odds by a Tory government who made it that way by design. Now, that waiting list that we've discussed so much now stands at 7.5 million people, and for more than 500,000 of those, that experience has gone on for more than a year. We've inherited an NHS lying flat on its back, but we've also been entrusted with the responsibility to restore it. Where the Conservatives have failed, we understand we cannot afford to. We're today debating a plan that will deliver 40,000 extra appointments a week, 1 million, 2 million extra a year, an extra 8,500 mental health staff, thousands more doctors, nurses, new equipment and the latest technology to diagnose earlier and treat sooner. Imagine the kind of health service we could build. Picture the security and confidence you would feel walking into a GP's appointment and knowing that no matter what, you will be seen in 18 weeks. It was a reality under the last Labour government. We can do it again. And imagine the pride we would feel being able to go back to the British public at the next general election and say, you entrusted us with our most sacred national institution. We repaid your trust, we delivered and we rebuilt the NHS. So let's get to work, let's back our NHS and let's take another step towards saving it by passing this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Conference. Before I start to second this motion, I would just like to publicly thank NHS staff at York District Hospital for saving the life of my daughter during the COVID pandemic. She was in intensive care with many others, fighting for her own life while the Tories were holding parties in Downing Street. Conference, I know how valuable medical care free at the point of need is. Myself, my 2 children and my 3 grandchildren would not exist if the NHS had not been there to perform pioneering surgery on my mother in 1954 at Petworth Hospital. She was working class, had become too sick to work, and if the NHS had not been there to help her, she would have died. She got caught up in the floods along the Norfolk coast in 1953. She developed pneumonia and then TB. My parents met in hospital. My father also had TB. The NHS tried hard to save my dad's life too, but for him it was too late. His tuberculosis had spread too far, and he endured a long and painful death over a 10-year period. The reason his had spread too far was because he failed to seek medical help at an early opportunity. Early medical help is so important and can mean the difference between life or death. Today, people requiring surgery are placed on waiting lists where they can remain for months, sometimes longer. During that time, they have to endure suffering and the worsening of their condition. And I know that this is hard to bear because as a child, I witnessed my father's suffering. My father struggled so badly with his declining health that on 2 occasions he tried to commit suicide. So it's not just physical health that is at risk. Mental health services are just as bad, if not worse. We have the highest rate of suicides in this country since 1999. We are 70 years on from 1954, and the NHS should have continued to go forward, but things have gone backwards thanks to the Tories. If a Conservative government had been returned to power in July, I have no doubt the decline in the NHS would have reached a point of no return. This country has an opportunity under a Labour government to rebuild the NHS. It will need a steadfast approach, improvements in staffing, technology, equipment and research at a time when there's little money left to do anything. We only have 5 years until the next general election. There are no guarantees we will get a second term. That is why it's so important to start to deliver our manifesto pledges on the NHS straight away. People have only one life, and when you are sick, it can be no life at all. Conference, please support all those on hospital waiting lists by supporting this motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, delegates. And moving now on to the final composite in this section, composite 13, to be moved by Bexhill and Battle CLP.
Good morning, Conference. My name is Christine Bayliss and I'm moving this motion on behalf of Bexhill and Battle CLP. Conference, I serve as a Rother District Councillor with Cabinet responsibility for economic growth. One of the challenges around attracting inward investment into East Sussex is a lack of relevant skills in the local workforce. As a Labour councillor, my ambition is to ensure that the jobs we create are open to all young people in our community, those with disabilities and special needs, and those from our most disadvantaged communities. However, the report published by the Education Policy Institute in July shows that the attainment gap between disadvantaged pupils and their peers is growing. Without good qualifications, young people are often consigned to low pay and insecure employment. New opportunities will pass them by. Conference, the closure of Sure Start, the narrowing of the curriculum, the reduction in the value of the pupil premium, the funding squeeze supporting pupils with special educational needs, and the impact of a growing number of children living in poverty is clear. The attainment gap has widened for the very children and young people I came into politics to serve. What an indictment of 14 years of Tory mismanagement and incompetence. But it doesn't need to be like this. I was a civil servant in the Department of Education when Labour was last in power, and I witnessed firsthand the difference a Labour government made to the lives of children living in the most deprived communities. Excellence in cities, education action zones, London Challenge, literacy and numeracy hours, and investment in early years. This Labour government can and will do it again. So let's work to extend opportunities to all pupils to succeed and lead fulfilling lives. Invest in teachers and their training, tackle the recruitment crisis for support staff, provide specialist mental health support in schools, and make the curriculum rigorous, broad-based and relevant. Conference, please support this motion. Thank you.
Conference, can I ask you can formally second this from the floor? Can somebody formally second it for us? Yes, thank you. Okay, we now have time, and I only have time for 3 speakers. Apologies for that. So can I see all those who would like to speak in this debate? So there's someone in the green top over there. Thank you. On here, and then in the, is it turquoise? Yeah, in the top there. Thank you. And if you all go to the desk just to register.
Good morning, Conference. Jennifer Hemingway, Smethwick CLP, Labour and Cooperative Councillor for Sandwell. I'll say right now I'm going to be talking fast because I've trimmed this speech down a tad. Since its founding, the NHS has been a vital part of this party and this country, and it's a part of who we are, a piece of us, body and soul. Every person in this room will know intimately well that that body is rather poorly now. NHS staff are phenomenal. If not for their dedication and service, I believe the NHS would not have lasted through the last 14 years of neglect from a Tory government. And we have a duty to them and to ourselves to fix this. Our Labour Party was elected in July with a promise to this country, and this motion reaffirms that promise. Everyone here will have a personal story, and I considered long and hard which ones to share, whether it was about my daughters trying to get mental health diagnoses, my partner who was so long on a waiting list that he now will never be able to walk again unaided and is permanently disabled. But I want to share something a little different. You may have guessed from the way I speak that I did not grow up in the Black country. I grew up without the NHS. And in America, there's excellent care available, but not for the likes of me. Every test involved another bill, and I recall my mother having a stroke and refusing to call for help because she was afraid of what it would cost our family. I drove 45 minutes from college to get to her and drag her to hospital because I knew she was too stubborn. She survived, but there was indeed a price to pay. And not only financial, because time also has a cost. Sometimes complex situations like the one before our NHS require a differential diagnosis to get the right treatment. I have Addison's disease. That means, in effect, that my body's system for dealing with stress does not work. An irony for someone in politics, I'd say. And in America, I would have died before I had been able to afford to find the answers to get treatment. I owe my life to the NHS. This is a very emotional topic, and I will be forever grateful. There's a time and a place for everything, and right here and right now is a time for pride in what has come before and the endurance of our colleagues, righteous anger at where we have been left, and a fierce determination to fulfill our duty and go through that long battle to save our NHS, and hope, because I know that this Labour government can do it. Thank you, Conference.
Good morning, Conference. Julianne McGough, Chair of Birkenhead CLP, and there are absolutely no first-time badges here. I am speaking in support of the Health Mission motion. As a type 1 diabetic, I know only too well the importance of ongoing, free at the point of access, medical support and treatment. Additionally, when diagnosed last year with breast cancer, I benefited from an early diagnosis through routine screening and subsequent fast treatment, which means I am now cancer-free and have a positive prognosis. But Conference, not everyone will have the same experience. I am a proud volunteer for the Motor Neurone Disease Association Wirral Group. The group currently supports 35 people living with motor neurone and their families. Today, 6 people in the UK will be given the devastating news that they have MND, joining 5,000 others. However, for many, this diagnosis will be many months or years after their symptoms first emerged. When you have a life-limiting illness, getting adaptations to make your life as easy as possible is crucial. The impact this delay has on patients and their families is profound and very extensive, negatively impacting the quality of their lives. Furthermore, the few drugs available are often more effective when provided early in the disease. Currently, the only hope patients have in slowing down the cruel trajectory of this disease. With limited spare time, I could spend more of that time with my friends in the MNDA Association. They're far easier to work with than politicians. They're just a lot nicer bunch. But instead, like many of you, I deliver leaflets, knock on doors, and spend what seems to be endless hours on campaign admin. Conference, we do all that because we have a profound conviction that politics, as our Labour Prime Minister has stated, should be a force for good. A government with a plan which puts early diagnosis for all diseases at the heart of a well-funded and well-staffed NHS, providing a better future is possible for the 6 people that today will be diagnosed with motor neurone disease. And they will have a better future because Labour is in government. Conference, I urge you to support this motion, and if you have free time, we need volunteers.
Good morning, Chair, Conference. Tanya Pratswell, speaking on behalf of Unison, the country's largest health union. And speaking on behalf of nurses, porters, healthcare assistants, cleaners, medical secretaries, lab staff, IT staff, paramedics and catering staff, and many, many more staff that make up the nearly 500,000 Unison members in the NHS. Conference, these are the people that have kept the NHS going in the last 14 years and why it still exists today. We welcome the full and frank assessment of the state of the NHS that Labour has inherited, and diagnosing the scale of the problem is essential. But I can tell you now that the key to rebuilding the NHS, first and foremost, is our staff. Together with driving down the waiting list, developing new technology, investing in CT and MRI scans, these are the sorts of things we can get fully behind. But they can only be delivered by a well-rewarded, well-trained and well-motivated staff. We welcome the promise in the motion to recruit 8,500 additional mental health staff. This is a great start. However, Agenda for Change needs looking at to make sure staff are banded correctly and so they have the chance to progress in their careers, making the most of their skills. That's another Tory legacy that needs close attention. And Conference, we must remember that one of the best ways to help our NHS not just survive but thrive is to build the National Care Service based on a fair pay agreement. Conference, our health members voted Labour to rebuild the NHS. We look to Wes and our whole Labour government to give our members hope. A Labour government working with NHS staff and their unions is a winning combination. Let's go forward together, support the motion.
Good morning, Conference. I'm James Smith, a first-time delegate and a first-time speaker. So I'm here representing Crewe and Nantwich CLP, who have just elected Conor Naismith as our MP with a 16% swing from the Conservatives. I only feel for the people of Bexhill and Battle who now have to deal with our old Tory MP, our old sloppy seconds, I'd like to say. So, I'd like to speak in support of the motion about making the NHS fit for the future. So, to make the NHS fit for the future, we cannot ignore the NHS dental crisis. So, as a dentist myself, I've seen patients who have been forced to remove their own teeth. Now, for me, I don't think that's right in 2024 in Britain to accept that as the status quo, and something has to change. To make the NHS fit for the future, we need a new NHS dental contract, a prevention-based approach, and this would in turn reduce costs and improve the quality of lives for all of our citizens. The most common reason for hospital admissions in children is tooth removal under a general anaesthetic. Now, I'm sure you would agree that that is a stain on this country. We need a public health-focused approach with water fluoridation strategies, education on the wider effects of poor oral health on the body as a whole, and also it's encouraging to see plans from the government with supervised toothbrushing at schools, and if that can be started at an early age, that would be brilliant. I urge Conference to support the motion, but bear in mind you cannot build an NHS fit for the future without addressing the dental crisis. We have a great opportunity here, the first time in 14 years where the ability to change things is in our hands. So let's seize that opportunity and make the NHS fit for the future. Thank you, Conference.
Thank you, Conference, and we just changed the platform for the moment, but thank you. Delegates, we are now ready for the next mission plenary, breaking down the barriers to opportunity. Conference, to introduce Bridget, please welcome onto the stage Jahida Hammond.
Thank you, Conference. 27 years ago, fresh from teacher training, I started my first job as a languages teacher at my old school in Washington in the northeast of England. I arrived during the final years of the Conservative government, and money was short and the list of challenges that schools faced was long. As in all comprehensive schools, quite a number of the children faced many barriers to their learning and grew up in poverty. But we kept our aspirations for them high. As you can imagine, it's hard to remember all of my pupils from all of those years ago, but there are some I remember well. One of them was a shy girl with long plaits. And she came, like me, from a single-parent family and grew up, like me, in a council home with free school meals, no winter coat, unsure of what possibilities lay ahead or how high to aim. She didn't have it easy, but she loved learning, even joining my newly formed girls' rugby team. We were great. She absorbed everything she was taught. She excelled in her exams and in doing so won a place at Oxford University. In 2010, she was elected to Parliament and this year was made the Secretary of State for Education. She has shown that there is no ceiling on what all of our children can achieve if they are given the opportunities to thrive. In recent years, those opportunities have been too few. And the challenges that children face today are many. Challenges that didn't exist 27 years ago. Challenges that go well beyond the school gates. Challenges that teachers alone cannot fix. But with a new government comes a hope of real change. I wrote on one school report for that same shy girl with the plaits that she should take more opportunities to speak up in class. I now know that she is going to speak up, loud and clear, about a mission to give all of our children a brighter future. Conference, it is my great pleasure to introduce the Labour Secretary of State for Education, Bridget Phillipson.
Thank you, Conference. Thank you, Conference, and thank you, Zaida. I owe you so much, more than I could ever say, more than I could ever put into words. Thank you. What you and amazing teachers like you at my local state schools believed, what I believe, what Labour believes, is that the best education shouldn't just be for some of our children, but for all of our children. Not just as children, but right throughout their lives. That education is how we build a better future, not just for each of us as individuals, but for all of us together. Conference, it is the honour of my life to be before you as Labour's Secretary of State for Education and Minister for Women and Equalities in a Labour government led by Keir Starmer. And as a Labour government, we see education as so much more than what happens in the classroom.
It is about children, and it is about their opportunities. Opportunity not just for some of our children, but for all of our children. A vision of education centred not simply on schools or nurseries, knowledge or skills, university or college, but on our young people, on their chance to achieve and thrive, to succeed and flourish. Conference, I spent my teenage years growing up under the previous Labour government. I saw the changes that vision brings. The classrooms rebuilt, the teachers respected, rewarded with time to drive up standards for every child. Hundreds of thousands of children lifted out of poverty. A Labour government transforming lives and life chances. And thanks to you all here today, we have a Labour government again after so many years in opposition. We all know how much it means not merely to call for change, but to make it happen. And that change is so desperately needed because Conference, my story, the stories Ida tells, the luck I had, it's not enough. Life should not come down to luck. It can never be enough. That a system that's supposed to serve so many works only for a lucky few. It will never be enough for some of us to defy the odds to succeed when the promise of opportunity must belong to all of us. We have to change the odds so that success belongs to each and every child in every school and in every corner of our country. And Conference, be in no doubt, the mess the Tories left behind stacked the odds against our children even further. A threadbare childcare system asked to do more but reeling from years of being given less. Teachers leaving the classroom, not in dribs and drabs, but in their droves. School absence, stubbornly high. Attainment for children growing up in poverty, far too low. Support for children with special educational needs, for children growing up in care, left in crisis year after year. T-levels botched, apprenticeships vanishing, standards falling. Universities turned into noisy political battlegrounds, not prized for their success. Ministers who forgot that children grow up in homes and playgrounds as well as classrooms, who watch technology turn our children's world upside down, but whose answer was to turn back the clock. And of course, the defining image of that last Tory government, schools literally crumbling around the next generation, children cowering under steel props to stop the roof falling in on their heads. This is what we find after 14 years. And I know, we all know, the Tories love a one-word judgment. But today, Conference, I have two. Never again. Let those words ring out, not just in this hall and in our party, but across our country. Never again. Because, Conference, that is the difference between our parties. We have always known that bringing up the next generation doesn't start and stop at the school gate. Conference, across education, I hear a story told time and again of staff in our nurseries and schools, in colleges and universities, going above and beyond so often, who stepped in when the services around them frayed and failed. School staff ending up as both maths teacher and mental health counsellor. College staff helping with benefits as well as BTECs. And I want to put on record my thanks, our thanks, Labour's thanks to everyone who works in education right across our country. You deserve a government that works with you to deliver the change our children need. And I'm here today to tell you that we are that government, that we will work with you and your unions, that change has already begun. In the 12 weeks we've been in government, we have begun the hard work of reform. We have already brought an end to one-word Ofsted judgments in our school once and for all. And today, the Curriculum and Assessment Review begins a national conversation to ensure that a rich and broad education the start that every parent wants for their children, is the experience of the many, not the privilege of the few. In less than 100 days, we will end private schools' tax breaks to drive high and rising standards for the 9 in 10 children who go to our state schools. We have launched Skills England to bring the skills we need for a decade of national renewal for our communities, our businesses, our country. We will focus apprenticeships once more on our young people to set them up to succeed. And Conference, we have turned government to the work of tackling child poverty once again, because it is the purpose of our party. Above all others, it is my purpose to ensure that no child grows up in poverty in modern Britain. But this is just the beginning. You know, as I know, that if we are to build a better society for tomorrow, we must change the childhood of today. And our mission to deliver opportunity for the next generation must start with our youngest children. So much in life depends on those crucial early years, before school, when the gaps between rich and poor open up. It is my first priority. The life chances of our children and the future of our country demand nothing less. Conference, a year ago I told you from this stage that we were launching a review of early years education. Our manifesto pledged 3,000 new school-based nurseries. And today I can tell you, change begins, delivery begins, those extra places start opening next year. The first phase of our new nurseries of high-quality early education, boosting life chances for children and work choices for parents. And 2 years ago, I promised you that the next Labour government would bring breakfast clubs to every primary school. And I am so proud that breakfast clubs will start to roll out from April, with hundreds of schools set to become early adopters this school year. Change begins, delivery begins, a new era of child-centred government, building a country where children come first. Conference Labour in government, once again honouring the promises we made to the British people, putting education, putting our children once again at the heart of national life. You know as well as I do that this can only be the start, Conference. The legacy that we have inherited is bleak. The challenge is vast. The path to change will be paved with tough decisions. But my belief is simple. Our best days lie ahead of us, and the work of government is to deliver them. To bring to life, to make real for our children, our vision of the chances in life that they deserve, a vision rooted in our values, and the belief that socialism is about using the power of government to extend to all of us the freedoms that in the past a great education only gave to a lucky few. The freedom to choose your calling and your cause, the freedom to achieve and succeed, to make a living for yourself and your family. Freedom not just for security today, but to build a better tomorrow too. That ordinary hope that inspires the ambition working people have for their children, that our children have for themselves. Conference, our party has always shared that ambition, but only now do we have the power to make it a reality. And with our victory, with this Labour government, comes the chance to build on our proud history, to deliver opportunity not just for some, but for all. Let us seize the moment together and deliver the brighter future our children and our country deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. And I now ask Liz Kendall, Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, to address the conference. Thank you, Liz.
Conference, 12 months ago, we gathered here in Liverpool, proud of our changed party and determined to change our country. And because of you, because of all the doors you knocked on, all the leaflets you delivered, just look at what we've achieved since then. The first Labour government and the first Labour Prime Minister in 14 long years. Our National Wealth Fund, up and running. GB Energy, switched on. The onshore wind ban, scrapped. Renters' rights, overhauled. Local buses in local hands. Teachers pay up. And tackling child poverty back where it should be, a top priority once more. We are proud of the change we've begun, and we know how much more there's still to do. All around us, we see the consequences of Tory failure. Almost record numbers of people who want to work locked out because of poor health. Millions stuck in low-paid, insecure jobs. Mums struggling with childcare. Disabled people denied equality. Food bank use soaring, and more than 4 million children growing up poor. This is the result not only of a failed Tory government, but a failed Tory ideology which says opportunity is for only a few. And conference, we say no more. No more writing people off, then blaming them just to grab a cheap headline. No more denying people the chances and choices they deserve, but instead real opportunities so families can build a better future, children can fulfill their potential, and so we build a stronger economy and society too. The only way to get Britain growing again is to get Britain working again. So we will bring in the biggest reforms to employment support in a generation. An end to the culture of job centres focusing on monitoring benefits. Instead, a new jobs and careers service to help people get work and get on at work. New plans to join up support for work, health and skills, so we tackle the root causes of worklessness, led by our brilliant mayors and local areas because they know their communities best. And because we will never allow young people to be written off, as the Tories did for years, our new youth guarantee, so every young person is earning or learning. And conference, all this backed by our new deal for working people with better jobs, better rights and better pay. That's how we transform opportunity, grow the economy and tackle poverty too. One of the proudest achievements of the last Labour government was lifting more than 500,000 children out of poverty. But under the Tories, poverty soared. And I want to tell you, conference, that tackling child poverty is my personal priority. It's why I ran the Maternity Alliance charity all those years ago. It's why I came into politics. And it's why I've chaired Feeding Leicester for the last 5 years. Because you can't fulfill your potential without food in your belly or a decent roof over your head. And you cannot build a better country when the talents of so many are being denied. And that is why I am so proud to lead this government's new Child Poverty Task Force alongside the inspirational Bridget Phillipson. And it's why, despite all the problems we've inherited from the Tories, this Labour government has invested an extra £500 million in the Household Support Fund, so we can help families who need it most this winter. And so we can help the poorest pensioners too. Conference. Focusing winter fuel payments on the poorest pensioners wasn't a decision we wanted or expected to make. But when we promised we could be trusted with taxpayers' money, we meant it. And when we were faced with a £22 billion black hole, which the Tories left this year, we had to act. Because we know what happened when Liz Truss played fast and loose with the public finances. It was working people and pensioners on fixed incomes who paid the highest price. That is why we took what I know is a difficult decision. But let me tell you, Conference, this Labour government has done more to help the poorest pensioners in the last 2 months than the Tories did in 14 years. The biggest ever drive to get pensioners on pension credit, backed by our commitment to the pensions triple lock. This will increase the state pension by an estimated £1,700 this Parliament, with an extra £6 billion of funding forecast next year. Conference, this is the difference a Labour government makes. Poverty tackled, talent unleashed, more people in good jobs, a real living wage, and security in retirement for all. Conference, we will drive up opportunity and drive down poverty in every corner of the land, because the talents of the British people are our country's greatest asset, and we will not let them go to waste. Real change, with real hope of better days ahead. This is what we do. This is who we are. So let's get Britain working again. Thank you.
Liz. So now, Conference, we move to the remaining motions, and we start with Composite 14, AI and automation, moved by Unite and seconded by the Musicians' Union. Can I ask you to register at the desk? Thank you.
Conference.
Can I ask conference just to settle down, particularly photographers around the stand? Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, last year my time was short, so I'm claiming back my time this year, Chair, just to let you know. Conference, good morning. Good morning. Susan Matthews, moving motion 3, AI and discrimination. Conference, proud, extremely proud, Unite member, executive member, representing Unite the Union. As you can see, second time around at the back. We are only beginning to understand the massive scale of AI impact on our workplaces, in our industry, and in our society. I want to focus on the significant threats of AI and get too little of no attention mentioned about the changes with AI. It's about the entrench of systematic discrimination, marginalized of people in our society, the recreation and replication of exists in terms of the new era of AI and discrimination practice. AI and new technology are enabling racism, discrimination practice, such as blacklisting of trade unionists, to be given new forms, but it is not new. It's the same old discrimination and oppression of all the non-protective characteristics. Police in the US arrest the wrong black person because of AI and been trained to identify all black people as the same. Here in this country, the software is now used to award, examine, and mark and penalize students from black and Asian ethnic minority background and those who are in lower income and gentrification neighborhood. We have seen how many misinformation, disinformation, hate-filled social media content directed to people, spreading rapid delivery of social division, and we have the example of that in last month's summer. Research is already finding that the software model are replicating stereotypical views, racism views, ism views, and discrimination. As this motion highlighted, this is already happening. It's not a fact of potential future, it's present now. There is sometimes the false narrative that technology is about human prejudice and therefore better to the technology is neutral. Remember, it's input by human being. It is not, and this is not the technology problem, it's human being problem. It's not the root cause of human problem only, but it's the social and economic deprivation, industrial and political problem. So it is a political issue. So therefore, where we need to look for a solution, we must use the power Labour has now to take action and motion to prevent further embedded extended of all form of prejudice and discrimination in our workplaces, public sector body, and society on a whole. This includes statutory workplace, equality rep, which the Labour were due to have equality rep. And I'm holding this government to account that we get the equality rep rights that we deserve. Backed up by strong absolute, being part of the New Deal for workers, embedded equality right for all. To quote my favorite Malcolm X, education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to no one.
Delegate.
Conference, I move.
Thank you.
I claim back my time.
Hi, I'm Naomi Pole. I'm General Secretary of the Musicians Union. Thank you. We acknowledge the extraordinary benefits that AI can bring to society across many industries, including the creative industries. However, in music, we are once again facing a David and Goliath battle, where the big tech and multinational international corporations ride roughshod over the livelihoods and the rights of our members, the music makers, performers, songwriters, composers, artists, and music producers. There must be urgent protection for the human creators whose works are being used by tech firms to train and develop their AI models without consent. These models have the ability to generate endless new creations at the touch of a button, generating potentially unlimited revenue. It's already happening, and it's gobbling up opportunities for our members all the time. But there's no deal for our members, and there's no mechanism for them to be paid. There's no difference between the economic case for growth through increasing workers' pay and improving the reward for creators. Our members are workers too. If multinational companies distribute more income to creators in the UK, then the economy will benefit. So what we're calling for is, 1, explicit consent to be sought from human creators to use their works to train AI models, which means that companies like the major record labels cannot rely on rights grab clauses in old contracts that were signed before music streaming and AI even existed. 2, we want labelling of AI-generated works so that consumers have the right to choose whether they want to listen to a human or whether they want to listen to a machine. And 3, we want music creators and performers to be guaranteed a fair share of the revenue generated by AI music. The UK music industry has been world-leading for decades. Everyone, regardless of their background, should have the opportunity to work in music. But unless we stand up and protect today's musicians and music creators and ensure that being a musician remains a viable career, then British music will be consigned to history. We call on the Labour government to stand with us in our David and Goliath battle and be the champions of the 35,000 talented and highly skilled musicians that we represent. Thank you.
Conference, we now move to Composite 15, to be moved by Unite and seconded by the CWU. Thank you.
Sharon Graham, Unite. The nation wants food, work and homes. It wants a high and rising standard of living. Security for all against a rainy day. Friends, that's a quote from the 1945 Labour Manifesto. Written in the shadow of death, destruction and debt caused by years of war. It was a manifesto of hope, written at a time when our debt to GDP was 270%, nearly 3 times higher than it is now. No mention of cuts, no mention of austerity, and certainly no mention of making everyday people pay. Labour knew then that to make Britain more equal, they had to act and think differently. They knew to make it count and to make a real difference, Labour could not simply be better managers, they had to make lasting change. They promised jobs, they promised homes, and they built a national health service on the back of crisis. There wasn't a story of tightening belts or making some of the poorest in our society pay. Friends, people simply do not understand. I do not understand how our new Labour government can cut the winter fuel allowance for pensioners and leave the super-rich untouched. This is not what people voted for. It's the wrong decision and it needs to be reversed. Friends, we are the 6th richest economy in the world. We have the money. Britain needs investment, not austerity Mark II. We won't get any gold badges for shaving peanuts off our debt. These fiscal rules are self-imposed and the decision to keep them is hanging like a noose around our necks. Friends, our public services and British industry need investment now. It's no good having sympathy for workers in Grangemouth losing their jobs. They do not want your pity. They need Labour to step up to the plate and not allow a billionaire who buys a football club as a hobby to throw these workers on the scrap heap. We cannot leave Britain to the whim of footloose corporations. Hoping and willing for those corporations to invest is a prayer, it is not a plan. Yes, Britain is broken, and yes, the Tories have left the mess, and yes, they are to blame. But Labour is now in government, and we cannot keep making everyday people pay. Friends, I keep hearing, a wealth tax is too difficult. It would take too long, and I say absolute rubbish. We seem to be able to get workers paying their taxes in a matter of weeks. The system is rigged and the country knows it. Friends, let's hold up our heads and be proud to be Labour. Let everyday people know we are on their side. Let's put our arms around the working class and make lasting change. Solidarity, I move.
Morning Conference, Alan Tate, Communication Workers Union, proud to be second in this important composite on the future of the economy. We were absolutely delighted at the election result earlier this year, bringing to an end 14 years of a destructive and corrupt Conservative government. But for our members, the important work that the government, a Labour government, has begun has been overshadowed by the winter fuel cut. Until now, the winter fuel payment has been paid to all pensioners to help with the cost of energy bills. The payment was made on the principle that the older people would be left exposed and at increased risk if they could not pay for adequate heating. But in July it was announced that this payment would only be made to those on low incomes who received certain benefits. The changes will mean that more than 10 million pensioners will no longer receive the payment. While some may say they've never received it, charities as well as Labour MPs are concerned about those still on relatively low incomes who will miss out. The CWU has been inundated with emails and calls from our retired members worried about choosing between heating and eating. Experts are warning that this could increase the risk of illness or even death for vulnerable people this winter. Now, we have heard from both the Prime Minister and the Chancellor describe this cut as a tough choice. But Conference, the tough choice is not about switching off pensioners' heating this winter. The real choice is about picking up the phone to the tech giants like Amazon and the ultra-wealthy and making them pay their fair share of tax. In the last 10 years, billionaires, UK billionaires, have increased their wealth by 400 billion, over 400 billion. We should be taxing them, Conference, not taking away a lifeline for vulnerable people. There is a wider decision to be made about how we choose to run the economy. And in government, we must be fiscally responsible. But there is nothing responsible about an approach that leaves profits of private equity investors and large corporations untouched, while working people are being asked to balance the books with their paychecks and benefits. Labour in government needs to be bold, ambitious, and needs to transform people's lives, just like the government of 1945, as Sharon previously mentioned. If we don't, then the far right will latch onto the discontent in our communities and spread their messages of chaos and hate, just like they did last month. Conference, we can rebuild our public services, we can invest in our industries, and we can protect our pensioners. But we need to make the right, tough choices. Support this composite motion and support the economy for a new economy for settlement for this country. Thank you. I second.
Thank you. So finally, conference, we move on to our last motion, which is the motion from the Women's Conference, and it's to be moved by Unite and seconded by the GMB.
Good morning, conference. Angela Duerden, proud Unite the Union member. Conference, 0 hours contracts are immoral and exploitative. They trap workers in low-paid, insecure work, creating poverty, social exclusion and misery. They create an imbalance of power between employers and employees, with workers having little job stability and little or no financial stability, never knowing how much they're going to earn from one week to the next. In this situation, it's difficult to get financial support through benefits when work isn't available. We understand that some workers need flexibility to accommodate other commitments, but there are much better ways of providing this flexibility. For example, annualised hours, where the worker gets a guaranteed number of hours per year. If the employer can't find work for those hours, the employee still gets paid, can still pay their rent, and can still feed their families. So it's flexibility with full employment rights. We have a new Labour government, and they are saying change begins, change begins, change begins. Well, let's begin here and let's begin now. Unite calls on the Labour government to ban all 0 hours contracts. No loopholes, no get-out clauses. Unite the Union may be at the back of the room, in the dark, but we will continue to shine a light for our members. Support us in shining a light for workers. Give workers stability and dignity. Conference, please support this motion. I move.
Chair, Conference. Shona Thompson seconding Women's Conference motion, Women in the Workplace for GMB Union. Conference. Women's work has always been undervalued. Whether this is in domestic caring work that is ignored, the work women do to keep communities going, or in the labour market itself. Women work more and get paid less. Now, over 50 years ago, a great Labour woman, Barbara Castle, brought into the law the Equal Pay Act. It was a landmark moment for women's rights at work, and our new Labour government needs to carry this mantle forward, because every moment that goes by with pay discrimination continuing is time that women are more likely to have to work longer hours. Time where women struggle with childcare costs, time where women stay in relationships that at best don't make them happy, at worst leave them unsafe. Economic empowerment means freedom for women and their dependents. Right now, pay discrimination is endemic. Businesses and public services are balancing the books on the backs of working women. Right now, Conference, right now, 60,000 Asda workers are fighting for what they are worth in a landmark legal case. Conference, we must stand in solidarity with them. We need to make work pay for these women so they get what they are worth. And our Labour government must undo the failings of 14 years of Conservative mismanagement. Year after year, under the Conservative employment, tribunals were routinely underfunded. Access to justice was delayed and denied for far too many workers. This includes tens of thousands of working women pursuing equal pay cases. That is why we are urging ministers to commit to a regulatory and enforcement body to make sure no worker is paid less just because they're a woman. Our Labour government has a historic opportunity to resolve any injustice and make unequal pay history. We must grasp it. Let us carry forward Barbara Castle's legacy and build equal pay laws fit for the fights of today. Conference I second.
Conference, I now take 3 speakers in the debate. Can I... oh, there's an access steward over there. Yep, okay. You here at the front with the stripy top, and the guy there with, I can't see whether it's blue paper and white shirt. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I can't take any more at the minute.
Good morning, Conference. My name is Maggie Cousin, and I'm a delegate from Dover and Dale to this conference. It's not my first conference, nor my first speech. But Conference, really, do we want to pay 25% of millionaires the money that could go to children? We've been talking about children poverty. Now we're talking about people like myself who do not need the £200. Every single year, £200 comes into my bank account. And every year I go and buy stuff for the food bank with it. Because I don't need it. The children of this country need it. The poverty, the positions that the platform and the cabinet have actually been talking about is really, really important. We've got to sort the economy. The economy is basically that. Now, it's not a matter of taking it away from poor pensioners. It's a matter about giving to others. And also, we get a rise in pension next year, which is by far the better, and a lot more. This is what I call, politically, this is what I call an emotional spasm. It is not politic. The politic has to be made. And the other point about the whole question is, do we want to give the Tory party and the Telegraph stuff to bash us with? No, I want a Labour government. Thank you. That is most important. The Labour government or people like me. No, the Labour government is there. Thank you.
Morning, conference. My name is Ellie. I'm the Reading West and Mid Berkshire delegate. Big up, Reading. And thank you to the former speaker for breaking the ice, because it is nerve-wracking up here. But conference, let me tell you, in Reading we have 3 Labour MPs for the first time and a long-standing Labour council. I am a proud Unite the Union member. I've even got the lanyard. I've not got the sticker though. I'm a proud Labour student who enjoyed disco a bit too much last night, so do bear with me. Unfortunately, conference, my Daily Mail reading Nana is not going to like what I'm about to say. And I know she and my granddad, who I lost last year, who fought for public services in the legal sector, would say, go on, girl. Thank you. I don't really remember the last Labour government because I was born in '98, but I do remember being elected aged 19, trying to make a difference in Reading against a backdrop of Tory austerity. And conference, the reality is this: unless we stabilise the economy, we cannot invest in those public services we love. Yesterday, Starmer spoke to the politics of easy answers and the necessity of country first, party second. And whilst the introduction of winter fuel allowance means testing is tough, Labour councillors sat in this hall have been making tough decisions for years. A Labour government, and only a Labour government, is the working class party. And I'm a proud Open University graduate with a first-class law degree, a Harold Wilson, thank you, a Harold Wilson initiative, no less. And that was a Labour government that believed in opportunity, just like this one. And a little Reading working class girl like me, who is on her soapbox, you know, got to go to university. And this Labour government has inherited a massive gap. You know, in Reading we're talking millions, here we're talking billions. Of course, yeah. Sorry, got carried away. But conference, we must be patient. Patience is a virtue, and I oppose the motion tabled by my own union, Unite, and seconded by CWU. We must back our government and support them through these difficult times. Thank you, conference.
Well, good morning, conference. Dave McCrossan from Musdor, supporting the composite motion on artificial intelligence. Technology has always brought changes to the world of work, as we know, but the scale and pace of that change is now unlike anything that we've ever seen before. And yet again, it's working people who are paying the price of this, and they're being left behind. AI is already impacting working lives in every sector. We need to face the facts. It's not scaremongering to say that AI is likely to cost us all jobs. Employers can and do treat workers as totally disposable. The time has come to put that right. With robust redundancy payments and rights, proper consultation, but more meaningful pay when it comes to actually people losing their jobs. So that sacking workers isn't the cheap and easy option that it is today, but the challenges of technology go far beyond job security. Technology is managing more or less every single part of the world of work. So in retail, for example, it's fundamentally changing the nature of our members' jobs. It's deciding who gets employed, what shifts they work, and what people are doing when they're at work. And that's why we need strong regulation, because when you manage people with machines, you lose something crucial. You lose the ability to look at the individual's personal needs, such as somebody's disability, that means they need a reasonable adjustment, or someone's caring responsibilities that need to be taken into account. That's why we need a right to a human connection when these decisions are being made, and that's why we need equality impact assessments to safeguard against discrimination. On top of this, workers are facing constant surveillance and demands for availability. Conference, they need and they deserve a right to switch off, to preserve their mental health and protect their family lives. Conference, above all, workers' voices must be represented and heard. This is the point of this composite. It's not about stopping the use of technology in our workplaces, it's about developing a strong legal framework that finally has workers' needs at the centre of it, so we can empower workers to not only adapt to technology and change, but actually benefit from the world of work. Please support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you for all of those contributions today, and now we'll move to the votes on the various motions and composites. So the first, and these will be done by a show of hands. So composite 11, Health Mission. Can I see all those in favour? Thank you. And anyone against? That is clearly carried. Composite 12, Making Work Pay for Public Services. Sorry, yeah. Oh. Sorry, and then it says composite 2. Never mind. So, all those in favour, thank you. Okay, thank you. And anyone against? That is obviously very clearly carried. We move on to composite 13, Opportunity Mission. Can I see all those in favour? Thank you. And anyone against? That is also very clearly carried. And composite 14, AI and Automation. All those in favour? Thank you. And anyone against? Okay, thank you. So we now move on to composite 15, an economy for the future. Can I see all those in favour? Thank you. And all those against? As I said earlier, shouting at me doesn't do anybody any favours. Do I need to explain the electoral college? That was carried. And can I ask people to sit down? They're asking for a card vote. Yeah. What do I do? Just say it wasn't. Conference, it was obviously a very difficult and emotional debate. My view still is that that was carried. I don't want to move to a card vote. The advice I've been given is that it was carried. I don't want to explain the Electoral College situation to you, but that was carried on the basis of the rules of the party. Right, okay, so the final motion to be voted on is the conference motion from the Women's Conference. Can I see all those in favour? Thank you. And anyone against? Thank you. That is also clearly carried. So thank you, Conference. That concludes the votes for annual conference. I will now hand over the chair to Ellie Reeves.
Conference. Our bond with the trade unions is something that can't be broken. It's this Labour government's mission to support and deliver a new deal for working people. And with that in mind, I welcome our next speaker to the stage, FBU General Secretary Matt Rack.
Chair, Conference, Matt Rack, General Secretary, Fire Brigade Union, and I am very proud to be speaking today as the outgoing President of the Trade Union Congress, representing 5.5 million workers. And I have to say, it gives me additional pleasure to be the first TUC speaker to address this conference in 15 years under a Labour government. The last time that happened in 2009, Gordon Brown was Prime Minister, David James was keeping goal for England, and Lady Gaga had just made her first entry into the UK top 10. A lot has changed since then. In my industry, the Fire and Rescue Service, we've lost 1 in 5 jobs. Dozens of fire stations have closed, fire engines have been axed, and 999 emergency response times are slower than ever before. Our public services have been cut to the bone. The wages of working people have stagnated. We have a housing crisis, dire inequality, and we've seen horrific riots on the streets. Conference, the trade union movement is the backbone of the Labour Party. We're not charities or NGOs, we are democratic bodies run by and for workers themselves. Before I was elected as General Secretary, I was a firefighter in East London for more than 20 years. Conference, the COVID crisis showed once again, without any doubt, in this country and indeed the world, without workers, nothing happens. Let's remember some of the terrible figures. More than 200,000 lost their lives, in part due to the sheer incompetence and lack of planning and preparation by an incompetent and corrupt government. And let's never forget those we lost. But during the pandemic, we saw ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Let's remember the workers who grow and process your food, the workers who drive lorries or trains or keep transport working to make sure that food gets to your town, the retail workers who make sure you can go to a shop and feed your families, and of course, the amazing public service workers in our public services who kept us going through that terrible time. our wonderful NHS workers. In my own industry, the Fire and Rescue Service, we negotiated through collective bargaining additional roles and functions for firefighters to take on. Firefighters drove ambulances, delivered PPE, trained people in the use of PPE. They took that on to help to serve their communities. And we should be very proud of every single group of worker in the public or private sector who did that. But we also don't forget that some people did very well out of that tragedy. Some people got very rich through dodgy COVID contracts, VIP lanes, and they should now be paying their share to make amends. And that's why unions make no apologies that we wish to deliver the new deal for working people in full and without delay. It will be a shift in power towards working people and an opportunity to rebuild the trade union movement. And whether you're a delegate or a cabinet minister, it's one of the jewels in the crown of Labour's manifesto. And we make no apology, we campaign for it and we deliver it together. And through 14 years of Tory rule, unions have been the anchor that kept working people together. We marched together, we've been on strike together, we built alliances together. You know, people spend a huge amount of their life at work. And yet so many people spend that working life in badly paid, exploited, abused or put in danger in their working experience. And at the TUC Congress this year, we discussed at length the opportunities we now have to change that situation under a Labour government. We discussed many issues, and I want to take one moment to address one. It was a huge honour to be the first TUC president to welcome Hussam Zomlot, the Palestinian ambassador, who spoke bravely and eloquently about the horrors inflicted on the people of Gaza in the period since Hamas's horrific attacks on the 7th of October. And I reiterate the call from Congress for an immediate and permanent ceasefire, the release safely of all hostages, and for a just settlement and a two-state solution, including a free and independent Palestine. Conference, the New Deal for Working People, delivered in full, has the power to improve the lives of millions of ordinary people, but it can only be the start. The richest 350 families in Britain have a collective wealth of 795 billion, equivalent to the GDP of Poland. So some people have done very well over the past 14 years, and that inequality needs to be addressed. Our duty as a movement, and Labour's duty in government, is to offer hope. That means investment in new, secure, trade unionised jobs, decent homes and good public services. We saw the effects of despair and lack of hope this summer when riots were fuelled by racist and far-right narratives. They were fed by years of Tory scapegoating of migrants and refugees. And our message from the trade union movement is we must stand together, that we are united regardless of our differences. Our enemies don't sail here in flimsy boats. They travel the world by private jet and they play financial games. They play financial games with our futures and indeed with the future of our planet. If we are divided, we will always lose. But if we stand together, remembering the words on a famous piece of Labour artwork, if we stand together, the cause of Labour is the hope of the world. Conference, together as the Labour movement, let us offer people hope. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Matt. Conference, what a week we have had. A showcase of the best our party has to offer. Bold, ambitious, committed to restoring the promise of Britain. On the 4th of July, our country stood at a crossroads. The choice was simple: more chaos and division, or a chance to move forward together. The nation made its decision. We voted to turn the page, to close the door on Tory failure and walk towards the future with a renewed sense of hope with Labour. This year marks 100 years since the first ever Labour government. A party founded to be the political voice of working people in Parliament. A party with progress woven through our DNA. Don't just take my word for it. Look at every major piece of social progress in the last 100 years. Creating the NHS, abolishing the death penalty, equal pay for women, the Race Relations Act, all great Labour achievements. Our record is one to be proud of, not one to run from. And that includes the last Labour government too. The national minimum wage, Sure Start, the Equality Act, 500,000 children out of poverty, waiting time slashed, schools rebuilt. With Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, Labour transformed our country. And look what has happened since under the Conservatives. Public services on their knees, living standards in the gutter. The flame of our national ambition has been reduced to embers. This isn't a new reality, but it is a Conservative one. In the 1990s, the local state school that I had attended had been decimated by years of Tory cuts. We were taught in huts in the playground and had to share textbooks. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was the lack of aspiration, the lack of belief that the next generation could reach higher than the last. Nothing illustrates that more than a conversation I had with a careers advisor who came to visit my school. We were discussing what I wanted to do after leaving, and I outlined my plans for university. The careers advisor turned to look me in the eye and said, "Shouldn't we aim for something more suited to D's and E's?" She knew nothing about me except where I went to school. That was seemingly enough for her to determine my future for me. I don't even blame the careers advisor. It wasn't her fault. She was operating in the system of its time. A system that told state school kids that they shouldn't get above their station. A system where an individual's life chances were determined by their postcode and not their ability. That's not Labour, that's not Britain. Schools should be cathedrals of learning. They should be encouraged to kindle something in our children that inspires them to reach the full limits of their potential. My state school produced the first ever female chancellor. Why shouldn't that be the norm? Mine and Rachel's parents were both teachers, so we know firsthand the incredible work teachers do day in, day out. They inspire our children. They encourage them to set their sights on the horizon, to dream dreams they never thought possible. But it's the government's job to give our teachers the tools. That's why I was proud to hear Rachel and Bridget reiterate our commitment to remove the tax loophole on private schools so we can use this money to deliver a high-class education for everyone. With Labour, a child's background will never determine their future. We can only do that because of you. In 2019, they said that Labour was finished, that we were a spent force destined for years in the wilderness. When they said it couldn't be done, you kept the faith. You helped us change our party. You knocked on doors. You spoke to your neighbours and colleagues. Together, we made a case for a better Britain. Because of you, our campaign was one built on hope. We woke up every single day to show people that things could be different. They could be better. Because of you, we secured that historic victory. Because of you, we have the opportunity to transform our country once again. First, party second, always. During the campaign, Rachel and I got to visit Kettering. It's a poignant place for us. It's where our grandparents moved to get work in a local shoe factory. They worked hard to build a better life for their family. This used to be the promise of Britain, the unwritten social contract. Work hard, get on. But that just wasn't the case for the people we met in the local Morrisons. A teacher, a firefighter, a care worker. Each and every one of them were working their fingers to the bone every single day, making their communities better. But they were all struggling with the cost of living. Mortgages had gone through the roof, their food bills had shot up, and for all of them, their childcare was unaffordable. To them, that's what Britain looked like. Work hard, get less. They were exasperated. They didn't want a hand out or a leg up. They just wanted a government that understood their lives and worked as hard as they did to make things a little bit easier. We owe it to them to deliver that, as we have before. Make no mistake, when a nation is at a crossroads, when our public services need rebuilding, when our national mission must be renewed, the British people turn to Labour. A proud history, a bright future for Britain and for Labour. And like the greats of the Labour movement who came before us, we will not let this opportunity go to waste. Our plan is bold and ambitious. 2 million more NHS appointments every year, free breakfast clubs in every primary school, halving violence against women and girls, more dentist appointments, building 1.5 million homes, affordable homes, where we need them, and delivering the most ambitious workers' rights programme in a generation. So as we leave Liverpool, let us reflect on how far we have come together. We spent 4 years leading up to the campaign, learning lessons from the past, determined not to repeat them. And as I stand here in front of you, I am in awe of the energy in this room. Our members, affiliates, trade unionists, councillors, and our brilliant MPs, each and every one of you make our movement stronger. But now we need to do the same for Britain. After 14 years of Conservative government, many felt our best days as a country were behind us. As the Labour Party, we refused to accept that. Together, we persuaded the country that a better Britain was possible, one where our future was as proud as our past, a future where public services are there for you when you need them, where economic growth benefits working people, where decency and service are at the heart of government once again. It was the late John Smith who said, "The chance to serve, that is all we ask." The British people have given us that chance. We will not let them down. Thank you, Conference. I want to take this opportunity to thank all the organisations who've helped deliver such a successful, safe and secure conference. All of the staff at ACC Liverpool, all the hotels across the city, including the Pullman and Leonardo's, Merseyside Police, Securitas and Carlisle Stewarding, and all the accessibility stewards. Barefoot Live for all the main hall production, Signalese for their BSL interpretation, Prompt Action auto cue operators, Nipabout for the creche provision. And finally, of course, all the Labour Party staff who've managed to deliver this conference 10 weeks after a general election. They are all so brilliant. Now, to lead the traditional rendition of the Red Flag and Jerusalem, we welcome back to conference Anna-Marie Newton. She's accompanied by Stephen Mannings, Director of Choral Outreach at Liverpool Cathedral.
The people's flag is deepest red, it's shrouded of martyr dirt, and ere their limbs grew stiff and cold, their heart's blood dyed its every fold. Then raise a scarlet standard high, beneath its shade we'll live or die. Though cowards flinch and traitors sneer, we'll keep the red flag flying here. With heads uncovered, swear we all to bear it onward till we fall. Come dungeons dark,